Try this one more time and see what happens. Says we're live. Probably live on... Can't tell if we're live on X. Let me see. OBS, docs, restream channels. Streaming on both. Now let's see if we can make it more than 2 minutes on this. Can also figure out where my video capture is. Where do I need to learn. Hello, good morning, everybody. Yeah, have not streamed on OBS for a long time, so we'll see how this goes. My camera. How do I position this when it's off screen somewhere? Sheesh. Order, transform, stretch to screen, center to screen. There we go. Hello. Are we still streaming? Has it been 2 minutes yet? Have we been cut off? Trying to see if there's any... There's like a couple frames missing for rendering lag. I haven't rebooted my computer for a long time, so it could be related to that or whatever. But no, it looks okay so far. All right, maybe we'll try digging in. Third time's a charm. I'm gonna keep an eye and see if we're still streaming. The idea today is I wanted to work on a gem and try to use Chromium to render PDFs. Grover is a Ruby gem for that. Morning, guys. Yeah, so Grover uses Ruby to control JavaScript with Puppeteer to control Chromium to generate PDFs. And we don't really need that extra JavaScript layer. It's, I guess, a little faster than using this library called Ferrum. But Ferrum's written in pure Ruby. So it is one less dependency. We don't need Puppeteer. We just need to install Chromium or Chrome to run headless in our Docker images or containers or whatever. And so this is kind of what I want to do as an alternative to Prawn, if you've ever used that. And Prawn's pretty cool. Zero real dependencies outside of Ruby, which is awesome. But you have to do things like text hello world and move around the document, which can be pretty tedious and hard to design. You can't really, slap some CSS on there or anything to make that work. So what we're gonna do today is poke around using Ferrum to generate a PDF. So I've just made a brand new Rails plugin in the last stream that was only 2 minutes. And we ran Rails plugin new, Ferrum PDF, just picked a random name, and we're gonna work on making that work. So inside here, because it's a Rails plugin, we have a dummy application, so we can add a controller, and we can add like a PDF controller.rb in here. And make an action that like renders PDF, so we can have some sort of mechanism for doing that. One thing I did like about Grover, they talk about using your controller to render to string, a template and a view or whatever, including the layouts and all that, and locals. So we could do kind of the same thing. You can provide it the HTML, but you can also give it a URL. So we're going to be doing that. Yeah. In one of my projects, I use WK-HTML to PDF. That is what Wicked, PDF, and some other gems use as well. Again, another dependency that you have to use. And it would be nice if we could just use the browser and CSS and then also be able to just open a page in our browser to preview the format and everything. This is one of the reasons for this. Yeah, I mean, Andy, headless Chrome and production containers, I think if you set it up right, it's not a big deal. It's not going to be using that much memory or whatever. You can look down here, the thread safety. It's nice. You can run this thread safe, so you can create a new tab, then dispose of the context and all that good stuff. So if you had two of these running at the same time, like two customers exporting at the same time, you could run that no problem, and then set them up separately and whatnot. So this is pretty cool. But anyways, yeah, we'll probably poke around with this. I do like the simplicity of prawn, just doing it all in process, not having any extra dependencies. But so what we'll need is some sort of way to send a PDF back to the browser right here. And what I'm going to do is, the way we're going to try to set this up, what is going on with GitHub over here? The way I think I'm going to set this up is, rather than having Ferrum PDF build its own class, we might actually inherit from Ferrum, so we get like all of the functionality. So if we make our class inherit from Ferrum browser, that could be a great way to do that. So we could have a browser class if we wanted that inherits from Ferrum browser. We will need to go into our gem spec and add the dependency. Say Ferrum. Probably connect this to the single. Let's see here. Need to see the chat a little more. Ferrum 0.15. Okay. So we'll do 0.15. Kind of surprised. Maybe at 1.0 we'll end up with Ferrum having 0. Or more standard version with the 3 versions. Interesting. Wonder what it. WebSocket driver, concurrent Ruby, addressable, WebRick. Interesting. Okie dokie. So what we could do by doing this is we can end up with our own controls over top of that, but we can still then just have all this go-to features and everything else. But we can add our own methods to kind of orchestrate Ferrum browser for us. So we can have basically Ferrum PDF browser.new, and then we can define our own methods that do stuff. So let me pull up here. I was poking around yesterday with some examples. All right. So what I'd like to roughly do here is we'll set up a new browser that we might do is like self.browser. I don't know if we need a class variable or instance variable there. I don't do singleton things like this very often. This will basically be this. So then we can have Ferrum PDF browser. And then that can have some methods like set the HTML and generate PDF or something that will use this. So what I was working on yesterday, poking around with, is pretty much like, what if we create a context and we take the browser, contexts, create, then we create a page and we assign some HTML to the page. So this would be if you're providing all your HTML, your CSS, everything to the page and not directly going to URL. Then we can create a temp file that our page.pdf can write to, temp.path, which if we look at the docs here, Mohammed, I think it's fine for prawn to support other languages, but you have to supply your own font, if I remember right. Because we had special characters that didn't work, and either threw an error with prawn, but when we supplied like enter as the custom font, everything was working fine. So that might be the issue that you were running into. So that might fix that issue with prawn. So here's the PDF method for Ferrum. You can give it a path. Pretty much everything else we can probably leave alone, but maybe this would be part of what you would want to mess with for your export. So we're gonna probably just leave those by default for this example, but you could pass in those other options. And then we want to afterwards dispose of the context, and then we want to read that temp file, and then get rid of the temp file once it's done. So this will basically give Ferrum PDF or Chrome a location to write the PDF. Then we get rid of that tab in the browser, but we can leave the browser running so we don't have the slow boot up time that would only happen in the initial time. And that should do the trick. So then we could read and then be done and send that back as the response in the browser, like this controller here. So if we had some method of doing this, private, we'll make it just an example here. And maybe we'll render a template, pass that HTML in, and so on. So let's go and kind of experiment with taking this example code that we want and building out the interface we'd like to have. So ideally, we would say like Ferrum PDF dot, I don't know, render PDF and give it some HTML. Maybe it'd be something as simple as that. Then this could be our method where it does most of this work. So it'd have to be class or module method there. Thanks, Harold. Good to see you this morning. Let's also look at Ruby temp file. I noticed the Ruby docs have been wonderfully updated. These are really slick compared to what they used to be. So temp file dot create creates a usual file object. The timing of the file deletion is predictable. Also, it supports open and unlinked technique, which removes the temporary file immediately after creation. Temp file dot create recommended. So if we do that, then we can close it, and I'm assuming close is what we will end up with. So we can have, we may need to like content equals that temp dot close and then return the content or something here. Could try to do that in a block as long as we assign content correctly. That would probably take care of it, and then we don't need our close, but create with file name, close. Unlink now as follows. Close the file. If unlink now is true, then the file will be unlinked, deleted after closing. Choose to call unlink if you do not unlink it now. If you don't explicitly unlink the temporary file, the removal will be delayed until the object is finalized. I don't think we terribly care about how Ruby handles it, so long as we unlink failed, and the method will attempt to do so again. Yeah, so we could do an ensure block as probably the simplest way. Then we don't need a content local variable, and we can just read and return that. Then file, so long as we call it file. I like calling it file better. And then we could also context dispose there, so that even reads a little bit nicer in our main setup here. So then browser context create a page. There's a whole lot of little things you can. Yep, Andy, you're on the exact same wavelength here. So I don't entirely know headless Chrome stuff with these contexts super well, but context is similar to an incognito profile, but you can have more than one. Think of it like it's independent browser session. I don't know that we necessarily need these contexts at all for what we're doing. Maybe that's helpful. But yeah, see, it's using those two threads, creating pages. We might be able to just say browser create page, not worry about the context. I'm not sure that it's necessary. Could be helpful, potentially, if we wanted them to be fully independent. But in our case, if we're just rendering PDFs from HTML you give it or URL you give it, and you're not logging in for anything or whatever, like, it doesn't seem like that is necessary then. So I'm just gonna look at the block, what the block on temp file create does. If this temp file create returns the content, like after we read it, then maybe that would work. Create block. What is the creates before the returning the file object is closed and return the block's value. Okay, cool. So then temp file to create do file. Should eliminate all of that, and that's the return value. Much simpler. Slick. We'll give her a try. Okay, so we'll sign some HTML, then we will create the page. We do want to make sure we close that page, I believe. Create page. Because we don't want to is there a close or something on the pages? Where's the docs for pages? Well, go to URL. I wonder if create page with a block closes the tab afterwards. Because that is kind of the nice thing about the context dispose, should close that tab. But I don't really see any examples here. Let's take a look. Browser, create page. New context, proxy, yield page. Context, create page. Oops. So context, create target, target.page. Build page. Page.new. All right, here we go. Close connection, header clear, true. I assume that's what we're gonna want to like close that. One thing we can play with is like, I think this will work with non-headless Chrome, so we can see like what it's doing and make sure that it opens Chrome and then closes the tab. Because we don't want to like quit the browser. It'd be best if this stays open while Rails is running. Then, anyway, so this could be an ensure block that says page.close. So we'll probably end up where an ensure block here makes the most sense to keep all that organized. Then yeah. All right. Let's take this example and plug it into that PDF controller, and we'll try and do something like this, and we'll just do maybe a hello world example, because where else would we want to start? And then a routes file in test dummy can have root to PDFs. Index will have resources, PDFs, and we will have just some examples we'll end up adding afterwards. Okay, then let me Rails server. And I might already have. Oh wait, let's see. We're in Ferrum PDF, so sometimes I do have Jumpstart running, so let me shut that down. Restart. Oh, Ferrum browser. Require Ferrum. Might need to bundle. Nope. I guess it's installed globally or whatever. So here we go. So we get PDFs controller. Rename that to plural. PDFs. PDFs controller. Voila. Index is not found. That's fine. We'll go to PDFs1.pdf, or we don't have to do .pdf yet because we're doing a send data. This is going to download that, but we want disposition inline, and that should make it so that PDFs1, or no, send data disposition inline. I forget. I've done, maybe you need the file name or whatever. Data streaming, probably. File name, suggested file name. Disposition, inline. Test PDF. Type. Could be that we need to say application PDF. I think that's the MIME type. MIME PDF. Yeah, it could be application PDF, right? All right. We'll try this now. PDFs 1. Hey, there we go. Thanks. Hello world. Perfect. That's awesome. Cool. So, yeah, if we were to render to string a template, so like test HTML view and say PDFs test HTML ERP. This could be our, I'll just copy it from here. Let's say this is our content, and then this becomes HTML content. And it still works. Then we can, what I was aiming for was respond to do format HTML and format PDF, which will then do the send data, which will make this a little bit easier to work with. One of the things we may want to do in our Ferrum PDF rail tie then would be to register the MIME PDF Rails content type. I don't think that that's defined by default. Maybe it is. I forget. There we go. Initializer, Ferrum, PDF, MIME. So that'll be all set up. Then we can, I think, get rid of the type application PDF because that should come from this format PDF. But we'll find out here for sure. This will register that MIME type. We could also comment that out and just double check with Rails console. MIME type dot, what do we got here? Let's say methods sort minus object methods. So we've got lookup, parse, lookup by extension. That could be application PDFs already registered. Cool. Well, then we probably don't need to do this then at all. This might be all we need, and we can go try it out in the browser again if we restart the Rails server. All right, missing template for request formats, HTML, and that is correct. But if we do .pdf, missing template, formats, PDF, render to string. Oh yeah, right. We need to say format HTML, or is this formats? Yeah, there we go. Render to string format. Well, let's look at the docs for this. So render to string args, it's the same as the render args. I guess most of the docs are not in this file. Well, the formats is going to be something that's kind of interesting to. So this would ideally go in here. And so what might make sense is to do something like Turbo Rails does, because let's go look at the code for that. I remember messing with that a while back. I think I made a PR or something to it as well. Where is that? It is either in broadcastable, something like that. There is so when you do like a broadcast or whatever, it takes these like rendering options and then passes them over to the other methods. Oh, it's probably this in the Turbo Streams channel. Let's go open that code. Broadcasts. Or maybe the class methods? No. Where was that? Sometimes this can be hard to find. Broadcast rendering with defaults, probably. So this is like taking the options that you have passed in for the rendering, and then it's going to call render at some point. And so it's setting local variables. It's checking to see like the HTML format and so on. Because when you're doing a TurboStream response, like format.turbostream, when you render stuff, you still want it to render the HTML, not the TurboStream type there. How do I feel every time I see my current age ticking in my new tab? I feel reminded that life is short and I should not be messing around on Twitter and so on, or YouTube or whatever. I should be working, making stuff, learning, building. Helps keep me focused. I find it's helpful. Okay, so here we go. Broadcast render to. Let's actually search the repo and look for the render. View context, render partial, tag builder, broadcast, render format. So here it is, formats, and the render format is being passed in. So whatever calls render format then is probably what we're looking for, because it's going to pass that format in, or not. It's the only place it's render format, TurboStream. There we go, render format HTML. So internally, broadcast action 2 is the one I was looking for. Basically, it will use the HTML format by default if you haven't specified something else. And so the benefit of that is that you, as the user of Turbo Rails, don't have to keep track of like, we're actually responding to a PDF format, so the request format is PDF, but when we render this stuff, we need it to be HTML and yada yada. So we could basically help you not worry about that when it comes to the render to string, hopefully. We would probably need to implement something that is added to your controllers as a helper, so that that we have access to the render to string method in your controller, because right now all of our code is inside of our own module and we have no access to that. So you'd have to give us the actual HTML. But if we added a PDF helper like this, then you could have it, instead of passing in the HTML, you could do the rendering options. And so we could do something like this: render format HTML rendering, and we could have basically the same implementation as render format. Well, I guess actually we could put that inside of render PDF if we wanted to, because we could call application controller like they're doing inside of our own module or class. Interesting. We could access that. That's interesting. It might be beneficial to do it in the controller, and we don't have to delegate because we can be in the current controller with all the current customizations and stuff. But that would allow us to then do this, where you could say test PDF test, and then basically this all moves into here, and we say rendering with defaults format HTML, which would be slick. So now if we refresh, does it still work? Wrong number of arguments given 1, expected 0. Yes. You would have to say like template or something instead. Well, let's come back to that. That's a nice improvement we could do later, but is not critical. Alrighty. Are we back? Close. There we go. Oh, nice, Mike. Awesome. Feels like I don't know. It's time flies. Okay. One thing we could do here as well, rather than just rendering, and actually, let me go see if I can grab, yes. Got an example here. So maybe let's do this. Maybe let's make an invoice HTML ERB. Paste in this example invoice with some CSS here is a style inline style tag in the header. If we refresh this, we'll still get our hello world. But if we said this is the invoice template, then we can get a beautiful looking invoice, and that's it. It's kind of crazy is like we didn't really do anything fancy there. We can make an invoice with images, and I've got another example. Thanks to, I actually have never known how to actually pronounce your first name, Tabish. I hope that's correct. If not, maybe we'll see you in Toronto, and you can correct me in person. He sent me these, and what we can do, so this has got Font Awesome included in there. I don't know if there's any Font Awesome images, but he's also got relative placeholder images, placeholder image API, placehold.co, that's the one. We can do let's just update these to point to something. I'll use the same sizes as we've got there. I think there's another one, placeholder. Yeah, here we go. We need to split these. Oops. Split. There we go. 200 by 100. Got it. 200 by 100. Now, for this, I'm actually thinking we take the CSS here and cut that. We'll save it as app asset style sheets application CSS. And then if we go into our layout application, we can grab the style sheet link tag here and drop it in there. We also do have font awesome. Harold, yes, Chrome does need to be installed because it only talks to Chrome. So if you're doing this locally, it just works if you already got Chrome installed, which is nice. Okay, let's do a T-Rex icon here. Where is the HTML? There, right in front of my eyeballs. And we'll drop this T-Rex here at the bottom. And then we can do invoice with images. All right. So now, go back to this page. What we should see, what we want to see is that has that. And we can actually do the same sort of like invoice with images. So this is one of the things that debugging is awesome for. Or maybe we'll just say like name. So what I got here, missing this, render name. So if we go to one HTML, we should see this, which is what we get, but application CSS. Style sheets, application CSS. Interesting. Why would that be? That is. And then I noticed that it doesn't. Well, these do have icons in them. FAS. Is the font awesome? Oh, T-Rex is Pro. I just grabbed a random. Let's say GitHub. I think the GitHub one is free. So that's good to see. Well, we may have to add brands. Of course, there's a bunch of this stuff that's... How do I just filter to all the free ones? Regular? User. Here we go. This one should be fine, right? On our CDN image. Nope. Okay, whatever. Maybe we just end up with these, or maybe a solid FAS user. There it is. Well, we don't really need that, but anyways. Yeah, that's right. I forgot WK-HTML to PDF was archived. That's what got me looking at Grover in the first place. Mohammed, yeah, this is the intention of this is for production, to generate, beautiful PDFs with styles and whatnot that are darn near impossible to do with Prawn. You could spend a lifetime doing that with Prawn, trying to get the colors right and background images and like make it look fancy. Or you could do it with this, with CSS, and save yourself a ton of time, which would be great. All right, so our application CSS is not being found, which is a little strange. So let's figure out what's going on with that. Style sheets, application CSS. Now, this maybe needs prop shaft. Bundle Rails server. Hey, there we go. Prop shaft did it. Beautiful. You know what? Let's just get rid of that FA user here. So this is a cool example because this is using actual URLs for style sheet, external images, and so on. And when we go to the PDF version of this, we should see something more than that. All right, so that's interesting. Maybe there is something here in our logs. PDF, sending data test PDF. That seems like a pain to debug as well, but not near as bad maybe as prawn. I don't know. Arthur, yes, this is a Rails engine. Railtie technically, because I want this to provide probably some helpers in Action Controller, so that way we can hook in using the Railtie. If we weren't doing that and we were just making you call Ferrum PDF directly, then I'd make just a plain Ruby gem and I wouldn't bother with Rails. But my intention here is to make it, primarily the only thing I want it to work with is Rails. So that's the goal. We could make this also compatible otherwise. So you could require the Railtie only if Rails is defined. That's what a lot of gems do, so they can provide support for other Sinatra, Hanami, whatever else. So that's that. Yeah, I believe that's pretty much kind of the same idea as Wikipedia without using the WK-HTML to PDF that is no longer supported. So the goal is kind of the same thing. This is, I believe, no longer maintained. Yeah. And then it's using Qt WebKit or whatever. And the other benefit is if we're using Chrome for this, we always get the most up-to-date CSS and other functionality of the browser, and we don't have to worry about using a WebKit browser that maybe doesn't have support for everything that we're designing with. So, all right, let's figure out why this PDF is empty, because that is not what we want. Render to string content. Maybe let's print out this HTML when we get to that method call. We get all the HTML. So that seems good. Now, we might need to go over and look at some of these examples or whatever and see what are some of the options that we can pass in case we want to, maybe we can hook into something or have it raise errors or something when there's issues. Logger, object responding to puts, an object responding to puts. Could we just say self there or something? That's another thing we can do is we can say options here. Pass in those options across to, or I guess just that. New headless mode. So that'll be kind of cool too. We can do stuff where it's with defaults, headless is false or something. That'd actually be kind of fun to see. We could also, as part of that, then before we close the page, we could have a binding IRB, because it seems to be rendering the HTML, or setting the HTML, but maybe we are doing this too quickly. Like it's assigning the content, but it needs a second to process, maybe? Useful companion of headless options so that you have time to see the changes. Yeah, it's possible that's kind of what is going on. Do we have relative links to CSS? I guess the style sheet link tag may be relative. You're right. But I would expect to see some text in here. But I don't think we have any. I don't know if we have any text. I can't highlight anything. So that CSS wouldn't seem to be the entire issue, you know? That would be my thinking. That because I bet you're right that yes, the relative assets are relative. I believe that's something that Grover does and took that from PDF Kit. There's like a middleware here. If I remember right, caching PDFs and returning upstream. Nope. There was options fixer or something. No. One of these, I saw that HTML preprocessor, I believe. HTML version looks fine. So, I don't think that's that. Relative protocols, relative paths to absolute, and relative protocols to absolute protocols. So, let's look at these Rubular links. Rubular is one of the best. Okay, so this is it's just changing the protocols. Relative paths, that's what we want, is the root URL to be set. We probably will have to do a preprocessor here like this for the URL then. But that should be doable with the request host. We should be able to use automatically then and give it the HTML and pretty much do the same thing. All right. Well, maybe we pop this in here. And actually, you know, as we're doing this, we may not need a Ferrum browser, inherited browser class. All right, so then let's say we processed HTML is the HTML preprocessor dot process. Give it the HTML. Or that's what we do here. So we could say Ferrum PDF HTML preprocessor process HTML request dot host with protocol, or host with port is the one, request protocol. And we can move that, you know, into arguments for render PDF to require, or to like take the request host and whatnot, and then have that done inside the render PDF. Probably that's what we should do. So we can have like host and protocol, or we could require those, probably require those. then this becomes host and protocol. This becomes host request host with port. Protocol becomes request.protocol. Something like that should do the trick. Let's restart our Rails server and try this again. So HTML still works. We didn't change that, so that should be fine. Processed HTML is wrong. There we go. So here I've got it headless is false, so now it's going to open up that and then do a binding IRB. It seems like what's happened is it's assigned the HTML, but it needs to take a second or something. So it assigned the HTML, but we're still seeing nothing. So it's really not anything we've done wrong here. We can set the asset host. That does work for handling those relative URLs for the asset paths, but we can't guarantee that the asset host has been set in the Rails application, so we'll want to still do this pre-processing to keep that safe, just in case. It's best practice to set that, but I bet you a lot of Rails applications do not. All right. So maybe we just need a little delay, like a short delay here before we do that. I don't know. Let's see what we got. Hey, there we go. So we do need a small delay to let Chrome actually process that assigned content. Maybe there's some way for us to do that a little bit differently, but that seems to have done the trick where now we get that. We are not getting our icons though, but at least we are making some progress. So I don't really want to have a sleep in here, but there is possibly some stuff built into this that would allow us to do that or wait for that. I also wonder too if like we sleep for half a second, or let's just sleep for a whole second and see what happens. Let's try it one more time. We will disable the binding IRB because we don't really need that. And then also I'm going to go to here. Well, here is where we have the headless is false. Yeah, so I'm wondering if, it takes a second to apply the HTML. Then it also takes more time to download the CDN stuff and process that from Font Awesome. So it might be a couple of handful of milliseconds in order to process that. And sure enough, that is the case. So that is definitely what's going on there. It needs a little bit of time to process those changes that we've assigned because we're not going directly to a URL there. Yeah, we might be able to check the page status or something. I don't know if there's any methods or whatever for this. But I would imagine clean up, browser reset. That was the method I thought of before, but I don't think we need to do that if we plan to because see what would happen with two of those running at the same time might create two tabs, and one finishes first and resets the other tab. All right, this is probably going to require digging into the source on this a little bit and see, oh, what was that message I just saw? Frame stopped loading. Callback should wait for document node response. Page frame stopped loading. So possibly, when we get into create page and other stuff, there might be some things in here that we can have and call it to wait or something. Wait for reload. Could be, could be. What other methods we got here? Close connection, go to prepare page. We'll see if there's any examples maybe here in the page content, set page content. Wait for pending request, wait for idle, wait for stop moving, wait for reload. So yeah, possibly one of these is what we're gonna want. I don't know if we'll want idle necessarily. Waits for network idle. I don't know the differences on the wait for stop moving. And actually, this could be a good thing to search for in like the issues or pull requests. Page.rb, command, wait. They do sleep slow-mo. I mean, maybe sleep is all we need. Unless event wait, which might be... Yeah, with the concurrent event, concurrent Ruby might be able to do that more efficiently than just calling sleep or whatever. Not entirely sure. What was go to is the one that I was wanting to look at, because this is going to a URL and then go to wait. Yeah, okay, so Pedro said, yeah, 0.1 seconds. Go to wait. So yeah, it is sort of the default there. Wait. And it's using that command, page navigate. Interesting. Maybe sleep if new window. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, this is definitely one of those tricky points about this, because if you're doing any of the PDF generation with some network stuff, then you might end up where your network connection at the data center screws up, and then you won't get a consistent output on this, which is kind of crazy. So I would definitely recommend making a style sheet that is something you can like embed or whatever, so that it's not going to reference something external, like a CDN or something that might end up where your PDF isn't styled properly because this, didn't grab that request there or finish it. Okay, well, new window weight. What was the value for that one? 0.3. Target new window weight. That probably makes a bit more sense because it's like a brand new window, and then it's got a... Yeah, and so that's probably already handled for us, and so I wonder if it's, maybe we should use Ferrum, what was it, page.rb? Had go-to weight, Ferrum page go-to weight. That might be the best sort of default to go with, and then you could override that, and we could say weight is that. Unless we can, maybe we can just call a method directly inside, which was whatever weight for reload, but event reset, event set, event wait. I don't really wait for page driver, wait for network idle in Cupright. Okay. That seems better than having to sort of, and maybe we want to do that ourselves too, but it does seem to make sense that wait for network idle would be the best. A better solution there, at least. This is potentially one of those things, though, if something hangs, it wouldn't work with WebSockets or whatever too, but that's probably fine, honestly. Appreciate the digging into Cupright there, Pedro. So it looks like page driver, wait for network idle. But I don't know if that's a method in Ferrum or wait for idle. Network, wait for reload, wait for stop moving, server, wait for pending requests. Page network. maybe we want this page network. That might be some cupright wrapper around it. All right. That seems to work. That seems like it would also be ideal there too for handling that. Another thing I was just thinking about was like the PDF format could be kind of cool if you could just send data but make another request to HTML automatically. Like if the format PDF could call the format HTML block, but I'm not sure that that would necessarily work because respond to is being defined there. You'd have to make sure format PDF was defined afterwards or whatever, but it would be cool if we could like go to that same page and then the PDF would just never have to actually do. I guess technically if you made another request, it could. But you're probably going to want different layouts and things if you're going to end up doing these PDFs with like a print-friendly CSS template. You might have a print CSS file that you want to use for this. Cool. All right. Making some progress. I guess we don't really need browser here. We do want to keep the HTML, or that was in Grover. Grover. I'm going to give some credit to this, which was HTML preprocessor. Same thing, really just sourced from PDF kit. We could also mention Grover in here too, but I like this. Not entirely sure that we need these to be private class methods. You might actually just want to call those yourself for testing or whatever too. So it might be useful to expose those. I don't know. Yeah, so we could make this render to string formats a little cleaner. Because I guess we could do like what if we did like a self.render template to PDF? And you give it the rendering options, like the name, and then host and protocol. And then this would basically do the render to string. But I guess that really fits better as like a method inside your controller. So something like that could be good, where we have like the name of the the name of what we want to render here, but then also if we made this work the same way as the Rails controller, because I guess this wouldn't even need that if we render to PDF. We could have action name equals action name, and this could be show HTML ERB. Then that could be automatic because we know the action name there. Rendered to PDF. Yeah, because what, like, you know, I don't really need to specify the action name if we're doing something standard there. So that's going to then kind of use all the implied stuff, like the rendering of your show action should just use the same action name. Like, it makes a lot of sense just to keep this all the same way as the way Rails does it, and then we just need to more or less figure out how to render it, and then do that. So that's pretty cool. And then in our rail tie, we could just include this render PDF method and inject that into application controller or action controller base, which would do the trick, which would be pretty cool. Initializer, Ferrum PDF dot controller, do active support on load action controller, do include, say, PDF controller maybe. And when we have, we can define let me split here. We can define inside of Ferrum PDF for convenience, just a module here. That would have render PDF as a method in there. We could extend active support concern and have that as the way that gets injected into Rails. If we restart, that should then include this into action controller base, and then refreshing, close for nil. Interesting. Full trace, ensure and render PDF, page.close, page is nil. What did we change here? Page network wait for idle, close for nil. I'm not sure what's going on there. Thoughts? Ferrum PDF browser. Oh, maybe this is related to what I'm doing here. So Ferrum, we'll just use Ferrum browser directly. That maybe was what was going on. I'm not sure. Where? I don't understand how Page could have. Well, I guess this probably blew up and then ensure ran. That's why. But I was expecting it to have raised an error, but I guess that was the case. Yeah, could do a template format, but I think with PDF, you're always gonna want to send data and specify the file name, what you expect this to be. Like it might be, if it's an invoice, it's probably like invoice dash and like a date format or something, or like a product description PDF. It might be the product name. So it might be best if we like keep it as just this little helper instead of extra stuff. So I think this is pretty awesome as a starting place, where it's like, this is all you actually have to do in your Rails application now, and we try to take care of the rest of it for you. And then you don't have to deal with Ferrum directly. You don't have to worry about temp files and writing these like helpers yourself, especially like the relative paths for assets and whatnot. That definitely is kind of a pain, but I like it. I know there's some other stuff in Grover to do some other things, like that middleware caches PDFs, which is interesting. And I guess the point of this is to stop it from hitting Rails to regenerate that. Yeah, I'm not sure. Also, just thinking we could add other, instead of like render PDF, we might actually do like, we could do a different method name here, like render or something, and then render could be the way we can do screenshots as well, or we could maybe have a render screenshot as a separate method, so it's a little bit more close to the Ferrum calls here. So that might be another method we could do, but we could do like you could have a render screenshot with some args, but then render with args could actually yield to the block for this part. So in theory, this could be all moved into here, and then you would yield page instead, and this could end up being render do page. Dot dot dot. And we may need to end up with a go-to option instead of HTML, or maybe both. Pass that in, but then host protocol dot dot dot, and then you end up with this. Oh, we'd have to pass the file path into. Little trickier than, but we could totally do that. And then you'd have full control over that for wherever you were at. Page in the file. So then that's how we could extract that out to make like extra methods to do different things. Both block arg and actual block given on line 14 and 20. Because we're forwarding the args, yeah. I guess we couldn't forward the args like that then, maybe. Host protocol. Oh, okay. That'd be nice. Let's just go back up to what we originally had here. And I guess then we could also create page, do something like that might work. That closes the page automatically. So then this will also close the temp file automatically. Yep, cool. We can, of course, confirm that as well, like if we want to do, well, I have to put a binding IRB and turn off headless mode, but I'm going to trust that that create page works like so. Do some more thorough testing if we want to poke around that stuff. Build page options. It actually does it? Or that's in context. Create page. Block given yield page. Okay, so this works on Ferrum browser, but that other context create page does not. So that would be maybe one gotcha of that. Those don't work exactly the same way, maybe. But that's okay, because we don't really need the context for this. So we could do, one thing we could do here is we could do, like, we require the host and protocol, but then we can have HTML as nil or go to, or maybe URL as nil. And then depending on what happens, we could either, if HTML is given, else page go to URL. And then that might work. We also probably don't need the network wait for idle and go to. I think go to will do that for us, I believe. Can double check. Go to Ferrum page, go to pending connection errors. Command go to wait. So that'll wait the 0.1 seconds or whatever, right? Yeah, we could. We're pretty much at a PDF as a service with the URL option there. There you go. Basically done. You know, this is one where, like, ideally we'd probably refactor this into a couple method calls. You know, render PDF from HTML or from URL might make a better call sometimes, but maybe not, you know? It depends. But I think in either case, the PDF and screenshot changes would benefit from refactoring this out into a shared render method like we've got here. Then we could just change out what call we do after the page has been created and the temp file is, or loaded and the temp file has been created. Because then it's literally just the one line, so we could yield that out, the page and the file back. We just can't do the full argument forwarding with the triple dots because that'll also forward a block if given. So it doesn't make, or it doesn't work as we want, or we would want. So, all right, let me run this again, see if that works, and I think we're gonna call it a day. It's 10 now, but that worked really, really nicely. Like, this isn't much overhead to manage. We can Also play with this for the PDF URLs if we wanted to, but like the controller experience is really what I was aiming for. Like, how do we make it feel really Railsy, and making it render PDF. It knows the implied action name. It knows what template to render. It knows all this stuff. If we can make it that clean and simple, then that's a big win. And then we could also do maybe a wrapper around this, but honestly, like sometimes people want it to be attachments, sometimes people want it to be inline. File names sometimes depend as well. And so I'm kind of inclined to leave it as this, where it just takes care of the PDF rendering and doesn't try and do a wrapper around send data. But, you know, you could do a send PDF that says inline, and or maybe it's test PDF and inline. Like, you could end up with a small wrapper around this where it just forwards to send data, but I don't know that it's worth the extra maintenance and confusion on it, where it's like we could just have good documentation on send data and that would be good enough, and it wouldn't really matter. Another cool thing you could do is with this you could probably do some caching. If you wanted to cache that render PDF, you could say like cache at record PDF, do render PDF, store that PDF in your cache, and then use that return value as what you send over to send data. That would probably work. It'd probably work pretty well. I don't know that it makes sense for that. You might also want to render the PDF and upload them to S3 and just provide a URL like redirect to S3 or something. But you could cache these PDFs in your cache store, and it just kind of makes it flexible for you there, which I like. And then what's cool about this gem then is get rid of these methods that we don't have yet. But that's it. We don't have anything else. We got Ferrum, Chrome, and a little tiny wrapper around it. Nothing like Grover that's got to be translating stuff from Ruby to JavaScript to call Puppeteer to then talk to Chrome. It's just Ferrum and a little bit of Ruby code and not much at that, which is awesome. So I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. Yeah, exactly. The file name usually depends on the parameters in a report. Yep. So that kind of stuff definitely needs to be customized. I don't think it adds a ton of value to wrap send data, but you might have to read the docs for send data a few times till you remember them and have them memorized. But that's okay. We can put them in our README or whatever. I don't know if Ferrum PDF makes the most sense if we also want to do screenshots. But maybe it is. Maybe it's just the core thing that people are going to be looking up. That's what I'm looking up. Maybe I want to do screenshots, but that's more for like if I was building scraping tools or something. I think just doing the PDFs is kind of the main thing a lot of people will be looking for. And then, yeah, I guess right here at the top, we could do if defined rails so that our rail tie is optionally required, but we always will make this accessible to, Hanami users or whatever else. They just don't get the controller, the Rails controller concern in there. And actually, maybe this Ferrum PDF or the controller lives inside of the rail tie actually or something, because this code isn't really relevant for that. Or we can move it to a separate file and require the rail tie and the controller file at the same time. We can even make a Rails folder if we wanted to, but for the most part, I think this is going to require Rails. maybe I'll just leave it, because also we would then make Rails not a dependency in the gem spec if that were the case. So yeah, one thing let's see. Yeah, I'm surprised that Ferrum gem only has the 2 version numbers. Yeah, I think I'll leave it. Maybe if we do make a version 1.0 and we ever really cared about supporting other web frameworks, then we could drop that dependency and release a new major version, or the requirement there. But alrighty. Hope this was fun poking around. I haven't actually played with Ferrum ever directly, except for yesterday when I was doing a little research. And man, it just works. It's slick. I very much like it. I think they did a really good job on it. Looks like there's some stuff in main, and the last release is in February. So chances are we'll see another release here soon that fixes a few of these network issues or whatever, and maybe makes it even a bit more stable. So looking good. I love Ferrum. Seems pretty solid. I know that Cupright has been like recommended a lot. Andrew Mason was a big fan of Cupright, and I always intended to check it out, never did, and gonna have to now. All right, everybody. Hope you had fun. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.